Hello and welcome to today's daily news analysis. So today is 18th of Feb 2022. We are covering the Hindu newspapers Delhi edition. Now, as part of our initiative, I make it a point to share questions for mains answer writing practice, and you can get up to 2 answers evaluated per week for free. Right? So naturally, when you are doing this analysis, I'm sharing with you some questions, so you want this to be checked. So 2 answers, only thing is, and this is for every week. So now we have at the end of this week, so Monday to Friday, we have an analysis. So by Saturday, preferably give it to me by Saturday so that I have also one day to spare. Right, so this you can do, you can share your answer in your pen and paper format. You can write your answers, maintain your register, that will act as your notes also. So this you can do, right? And you can always revisit our topics. I timestamp the questions, the topics that are there in the that where I have placed a main space question. For example, I have a question over here and I have a question over here. So you can always scroll and identify the questions and practice it. And one more thing, our community section is also active. So I also place the questions over there, but then the insights are always there on the video only. And one more thing I would like to say, I came across this thing that see, as a teacher and this thing, the thing is that it is not about so much about me telling you what to read, what is there in the newspaper. It is about sharing perspectives and ideas and insights, because reading is something that you should know by yourself now, right? It is about what we need to take out from that thing, that information, or from these articles over here, and how do we utilize it from the exam point of view. So this is not about explaining the news articles as such. It is about utilizing this for the exam, and at the end of it, it is about exam and not about so much about the knowledge. We have to convert this into examination format, and that is why we have this mains answer writing initiative. And I'll again once more say this, that when you're writing your mains, you are actually inculcating that skill of comprehending your thoughts. You still are preparing for your prelims also in that process. Okay, so these are the 2 things. This question I have repeated with reference to domicile based reservation. So I'll just do a quick recap. I have shared the question once again, so you must have attempted it. This is a topic that I am sharing. I've never done this on the channel before. So this is with reference to drought. There was an inspection that was going on as to what were the reasons for the drought. So in Rajasthan, so this is the topic that I have for mains answer writing practice, and this is very important, right? And then other things for prelims as well. Okay, so coming back to this topic, Supreme Court lifts stay on Haryana quota for private jobs. So very quickly, the state of Haryana brought a law, and which basically specified that if there is somebody who's operating in Haryana, let's say Gurgaon, so in that case, let's say this box that you see over here, this is reflective of number of jobs, right? It's a percentage of jobs that are there in this company. So 75% of this will be reserved. Reserved for whom? Reserved for people who are staying over there, who are locals. It's not about people who are born there, it's just that people who are residing over there. So residents, local residents have to be there, right? There are migrants also. We don't call the migrants as domicile. So 75%, and they said that not for everybody. People who are earning less than 30,000 rupees. So it's very simple. Majority of the population has to be covered, and they should be getting jobs if a company is operating in their place, in the state. That is the idea. Fine. But so that is the idea of the government, that local population is not getting jobs, and that is the basic reason as to why they came up with this. And Haryana is not the only state. We have the example of Telangana, which has passed a law on the similar lines. There is Jharkhand, Karnataka, and you can make up some states also, right? So there is Maharashtra. So there are some states who are contemplating reservations in private jobs. Okay, now there are 2 things. I'm coming to this issue over there. So this was being challenged. This law that they have brought, this has been challenged by the industrial lobby, right? Because they believe that it is affecting the freedom of operating business. So they're saying that it is violative of Article 19 of the Constitution. Then Article 19 also says that there is freedom of movement, freedom of residing anywhere in the country, right? One can go from one place to another and seek an occupation over there. So that is provided for in the Article 19 of the Constitution. Then one may say that the state is discriminating on the place of one's residence is not a condition in Article 15 of the Constitution, but it does say that on the place of birth, right? So Article 15 is also specified over here, not mentioned in the article. So 15. And then they are saying that does the state legislature really have the power of enforcing a reservation in the private jobs? So that is what they are saying. And we have Article 16 of a Constitution, and Article 16 is for public employment. So the power to make reservation in jobs, that is coming from, they have used Article 16 to enact this law. They stated this article. But then this is for public employment. Reservation can be there, but for public employment. And what is public employment? Government and public sector, the things that are defined in your Article 12 of the Constitution, definition of state, right? So in that, not 13. Okay, so it says that one is the state shall not discriminate on the place of birth and residence. So that is a condition. So residence is domicile, right? One need not be born in a particular place, but still have domicile of that place. For example, if you're studying in 12th of Delhi, for example, I studied in 12th I was in Delhi, so I can be a domicile even though I wasn't born in Delhi. In reality, I was born in Delhi only. Okay, so this is it. So this is this, and further the power to make law even with reference to public employment, and if residence is a condition, then it is with Parliament only. It is with the Parliament. So with matters of requirement as to residence. Fine, so Parliament, state legislature does not have the power, and this is a subject of state legislature. Then state legislature can make reservation, but only when they are referring to a backward class of citizens. We cannot say people who are belonging to a particular place are backward altogether. So that is again not rational. So 19, 15 and 16, most notably actually it is 19 and 16 of the Constitution. Right, so this is what they are saying. So naturally it goes to the court, they appeal to the court, Punjab and Haryana High Court. So they said that, see, you don't implement this law and there is a stay order. So they filed a writ petition. The writ is like a command or telling the court that please intervene in this matter. So writ petition. Right, so writ petition was filed in this regard. Now the Supreme Court, stays there. So the government has appealed. So the government has gone to a higher court, that is the Supreme Court. And Supreme Court has said that the stay is not justified in the sense that the High Court has to specify a good amount of reason as to why they say that the stay has to be there. So that reasoning has not been adequate enough to justify a stay. Then the government's Solicitor General, the government's lawyer basically, so he is also saying that, see, if a law is passed, there is a presumption that we have to agree that it is prima facie constitutional. But here we are saying this, the court is saying this as otherwise. Right, so this is what is happening over here. Beyond this, we can look at it from the point of view of Constitution. We have seen this, right? Actually, I was teaching elsewhere, and a lot of times I was repeatedly asked this question. And with faculties, we had a bit of an argument also, if is it constitutional or not. But I can quote these articles over here, right? And you know my view. Okay, furthermore, the industrial lobby from the point of view of economy, it affects the freedom to do one's business, it affects the freedom to hire people. It may make the place, or it may make the state unattractive for investments. It affects the operational independence of the companies, and therefore one would say that why should we operate here? Why don't we move to a different state where this condition is not there? So it may affect new investments that are coming, and in the longer run, maybe it has a detrimental effect on employments. And we can also say that it goes against the ethos of ease of doing business, which a Prime Minister has been stating. right? And we may be inculcating a practice of Inspector Raj, something what happened used to take place in the pre-liberalization era, before 1991. Right. So now you can answer this question. What are your views on the idea of domicile-based reservation? First of all, you have to explain what is domicile-based reservation. Directly, you have to come to this point. Then give reference of states who have done this. You can give a reference. Now, every state will have some different changes, right? So there you can say that, see, this is there with reference to Haryana. This was done. Other states also have a similar template. And then come to the constitutional aspect, then come to the economy aspect. Because when you are giving your views, you have to holistically mention every possible aspect and then come to your conclusion that, see, this should be done, or this could have been a better approach. So this is how you have to approach. And when you write your answer, it has to be in third person, like you're writing a report for your senior. Okay, we have some Supreme Court judgments. You can take a screenshot. Right? Never ever has it happened that the Supreme Court has agreed, and every time it has declared this as unconstitutional. Coming to the next news, Governor seeks talks with Mamata. Mamata Banerjee, the Chief Minister of Bengal. So basically what has happened is that we have this issue of interference of the governor, role of governor of being not being neutral. Right, governor is said to be as the agent of the center also. So what has happened in the recent times is that the governor has been, Mamata Banerjee has basically stopped the communication with the governor at all, completely. And she has also blocked him from the Twitter. And why so? Obviously, it's criticizing the government, which she should not be doing, because governor is the nominal head. He's not the elected representative of the state. And it goes against the recommendations of the Sarkaria Commission, Punchi Commission, 2nd ARC. Anyways, but that is again a discretion of the governor. Okay, so this is being done. She blocked him from Twitter when he was complaining about the governance. So she complained. Both have to work in unison. Okay, then the governor, what he was doing was he was seeking what he was calling the officials of the government, like the commissioner, the chief secretary, and asking them, taking the status. Now this is not valid, because if you look at the powers of the governor, and basically I'm not into this role of governor today, right? I have discussed this. Today what I'm interested in is in the prelims aspect and the constitutional articles and the powers of governor. Okay. So first of all, with reference to the power of the governors, right? So this is the power of the executive powers of the state, and the executive powers of the state basically says that it is with the governor and the officials of the subordinates of the governor, whatever they do. So naturally, governor also functions in accordance with the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers. So that is coming from Article 163 of the Constitution. And then we have that the governor also has certain discretionary powers, right? So sometimes there may be a situation like hung assembly. There may be a situation, hung assembly, where no single party is able to claim their majority in the assembly, and nobody is able to form their government. So certain other situations where maybe the issue of emergency, invoking of the emergency, or any situation basically. So in such situations, a governor has been provided discretionary power. Now the problem is, let's say that discretionary powers have been provided, but then if there is an issue over here, right? If somebody believes that the discretionary powers have been misused, or it's encroaching, or it is leading to interference, in that case also, whatever the governor does, right, the discretionary powers of the governors cannot be challenged. So the say of the governor is final. But de facto, it is the governor who functions in accordance with the Council of Ministers, which is headed by the Chief Minister. Okay, so this is the primary problem, is that the discretionary powers of the governor has not been fixed in the Constitution. So it is the Constitution who is to blame. Okay, so Article 164, which says Council of Ministers are collectively responsible to the legislature. They have sought the vote, not the governor. Governor is the appointee. And here we have Article 167, which says this is the article which we are actually referring to, that it is the duty of the chief minister as respects to furnishing of information to governor. Interesting. Income tax probe into National Stock Exchange ex-MD may reveal Yogi's identity. For the time being, forget all this. What we have to look at is that this here it was written as actually Chief Executing Officer and the MD. So Miss Chitra Ramakrishna, right? So she is the person who's heading the National Stock Exchange, and it has come to light that she has been seeking advice and opinions from some Yogi Baba, some spiritual guru, right? Who's the spiritual guru? We don't know. He has been also involved in appointments and other things. So the Security Exchange Board of India has come into the picture, and they have raised an objection to this, and also now there is an income tax probe. Now to go deeper into this, right, and to make more sense of this, we need to know what does NSE really do. And this is the thing that actually draws my attention more than what is the events of this news. Okay, so let's come to what does the NSE do, and you have all the important things I've highlighted over here. So basic thing is very simple. How many of you watched Shark Tank recently? There's the show also, right? So where the companies are wanting to raise money and there is reference of equity and debt. But that is private investors, right? So let's say a particular company, let's say there is Zomato. Nowadays, these days, Bharat Pay is, I don't know about Bharat Pay. Let's say a big company, Reliance. So Zomato, which recently launched an initial public offer, Reliance, and one more company, Paytm. Fine, let's randomly, okay. So basically, they want to raise money. Now, when you watch this Shark Tank show, so that is private investors. So they go to, let's say these people when they were small, not Reliance, but when they were small, so they would go to investors and they would say that this is a business model, you invest in us, we will give you a partnership in a company or equity in our company, or please give this on loan, banks will not give us, we want a long-term loan from you, debt. Okay. But now we see there is another way of raising money also, especially when the companies have scaled up, they have succeeded. So they raise money from the public, except for Reliance. Actually, Reliance initiates an IPO first and then it starts its operations. Okay, so to raise money from the public, so it is the NSE offers capital raising abilities for corporations and a trading platform. Right? So to raise money from whom? The public. And this also includes high net worth individuals like Rakesh Jhunjhunwala and so many other people. Right? So from them directly raising capital from the public. Now how will this happen? There is a gap over here. This gap is filled by the National Stock Exchange. There is one more agency known as Bombay Stock Exchange. Right? So Bombay Stock Exchange was there, NSE was later created. Fine, so NSE comes into picture. So NSEs, with the NSE, they have submitted their instruments like equity, debt, etc. So we call this as depository. So sometimes we also refer to this, if you are into trade, so you'll have to sign with the National Securities Depositories. So they basically deposited their stocks or things with the NSE, and this facilitates buying and selling of the securities of these companies. Right? So when you see that share market or share trade is taking place, this is taking place via NSE or BSE. In fact, if you are actually trading in shares, so it asks you if you want to buy a share or sell a share, you want to buy a share from the NSE or the BSE, and it reflects two prices also. So NSE is the platform that is allowing for trade in share. You are trading in shares, but the company, when you're buying these shares, the company has raised capital from you. You may profit from it if it is 5 or 10 rupees, but at the end of it, it is the company which actually raised the money. Right? So that is the basic fundamentals over here. So NSE is facilitating that trade. And you may use some instruments like HDFC Securities, ICICI Prudential, or these days there is the Zerodha or Upstocks. This ad also comes on the TV. Right? So this provides a more convenient interface which connects you with the NSE or the BSE, which allows you trade in these companies, buy securities or equities of these companies. Clear? This concept is clear? Okay. Now, naturally, this is very important. How does it function? A lot of money, lakhs and lakhs of crores of rupees are being traded, bought and sold. How is this money managed? How are the trade practices being done over here? This is very, very important. So the governance is of as importance as national security, because it concerns the financial security of the country. Right? Therefore, we need to look at the governance, we need to regulate this. So this regulation is being done by SEBI, and naturally there are a set of rules according to which it should function. So here what we see is that this Yogi Baba has been advising Chitra Ramakrishna. She has been telling her, telling him about these companies, these are good, these are bad, right? So the Yogi Baba has been advising them which companies to buy, which to inflate, which to decrease. So this is basically coming where this information is being leaked. So this is a case of insider trading, or insider trading basically, right? So this is a problematic situation, and this is reflective of corrupt practices also. And your money, my money, and maybe so many of us is actually under risk. So therefore there is a problem over here. So thereby SEBI has gone into this, and income tax is also looking into this. And it came to light on February 11th, where SEBI issued an order levying penalties on NSE, National Stock Exchange, Ms. Ramakrishna and others for violating rules while appointing Mr. Subramaniam as Chief Security Advisor. So lavish things have been given to this person. Cost to company is very, very high, right? What is the basis for this appointment? What criteria has been followed? So with the investigation and with more and more things, she said that, see, I'm basically taking advice from a spiritual guru or a yogi. We don't know much about it, but then this is not a good thing. It's a dangerous thing for us. Right. So this is it. Now you find equities, debt and derivatives. So trading and margins, basically speculative trade. Okay. There is also, they help with the initial public offers, right? So Zomato, when they are listed on the stock market for the first time, so that is initial public offer. Recently Paytm had come, right? Its price had come down quite severely. So that is it. Okay. Now one more thing, the NSE has its own index, and that is known as the Nifty. Nifty, you must have heard about it. If you haven't, you should. So Nifty. And then there is something known as Sensex. Sensex has gone up, Sensex has gone down. There is bloodbath in the stock market, Sensex. Right, so Nifty, and there is Sensex. Sensex is by the Bombay Stock Exchange. Right, I think all this information I think is sufficient over here. Then there is one more thing, Indian Depository Receipts. This I highlighted it. So Indian Depository Receipts is basically a way by which foreign companies can raise capital from Indians. Nowadays, there is this option on our trading platforms also, that we can buy US based stocks, right? So for this, they have two deposits. So there is this Indian Depository Receipts. So in Indian denomination, depositories are provided, and we can buy and sell in that. Okay, then now moving on to the next one. Central team inspects damage to kharif crops in Rajasthan, and this is important, right? This is important. I have shared the question. Let's read the question directly. Assess India's vulnerability to droughts, discuss its socio-economic implications, and suggest suitable mitigation measures. Sometimes you may also say that what is the need for a policy with reference to drought, right? What approach should be followed? And what steps in this process, you also need to know what measures have been taken. Okay, so basically when we come to this news, so in Rajasthan there was a drought in the 3rd week of July, right? So when it was sown in the 3rd week of July, so for that, to assess that, a team of central team consisting of the Central Water Commission, so basically looking into the aspects of water, and Niti Aayog, so they visited the site and they interviewed people and interacted with them to assess the impact of drought, right? Directly actually. So that is what they wanted to do. And they said that, see, I mean, I hope you know, you know drought is basically a condition of lack of rain or lack of water basically. So there may be a situation, in Hindi we call it as suka. So when there is lack of water available. Now this could be, there is the definition of drought. So drought has been defined by the Manual for Drought Management 2016. So it could be because of lack of rainfall. So rains have not taken place. Most of our agriculture is rain dependent. It's rain fed agriculture that we have, monsoon dependent. Right, so if rain affects, if it is not timely, and then with reference to monsoons also, we may say that 96% efficiency was there, monsoons were there, but then the distribution of monsoons, there may be more monsoon at a particular place, let's say Cherrapunji, and there is aridity in the south. So it doesn't help, it's too far away, right? So deviation, regional disparity, that affects. So this is there. It could be with reference to it could be with reference to moisture in the soil. Now we have many areas where rainfall is not taking place, but then by means of irrigation we are able to draw the groundwater and irrigate our fields, like in Punjab that is taking place. So we are doing paddy cultivation even though it is not suitable. So that leads to groundwater depletion. But again, what I'm saying is that drought is a condition where the farmers do not have water to cultivate. And naturally, when you don't have water to cultivate, it will have an effect on the farm, right? It will have an effect on the farm. It will affect the farm income. It may affect the farm income, and let me put it this way, that it leads to impoverishment. It leads to impoverishment. It leads to rural distress, right? Farmer suicides and all. So rural distress. It leads to indebtedness of the farmers. So farm loan waivers, those demands also come. Indebtedness. So this is there. Then obviously because of all of this, we can also look at the social side of things. If suicide takes place in a household, this is bad. If a family goes into the trap of poverty, it affects access to healthcare. It affects access to education. It affects access to food, hunger. So if hunger is there, then it will affect the child, especially malnutrition will take place. So it will lead to wasting and stunting and wasting. Got it? Stunting means shortness in height, and wasting. It may affect the cognitive ability of the child at the younger age. You need a good diet, so that cognitive ability means thinking abilities. So these are the certain social implications of this. Okay, so this is there. We can also add one more thing, that it also affects the livestock. Many of these places which are especially drought prone, they are dependent on livestock because those areas do not have much water, so they are dependent on alternative means of income. Okay, and you'll find these more in the backward parts of the country. So they said, this team had come and they said that, see, first of all, there should be fodder depots. There should be fodder banks so that the livestock like cattle, sheep, goats, right? So they are fed something, because when there is no water, when there is lack of water, your priority would be to drink water and survive rather than help your animals over there. That becomes a later priority. So to have livestock have some sort of fodder bank, which is fodder is the things that the animals need to eat. So make a provision that they are stored beforehand and then supplied to the farmers at free of cost maybe, so that livestock survives. And livestock is very expensive. It's obviously we have to look from the humanitarian point of view also, that animals and cruelty are the things, but it is also of economic value. Those cattle cost money, they provide milk, right? So lot of meat and poultry, so many other things are there, right? So this should be there. Then availability of drinking water should be made. Drinking water should be provided. Many a times you will find, especially in the summer months, 1,000 people died, 1,500 people died, 2,000 people died. So you'll find it in waves when the heat wave is there. Heat wave is again related to drought. It's basically exceptional heat that is there. Monsoons reduce the temperature, right? So drinking water, there is scarcity of water, so obviously you don't have water to drink also. So provision should be there with reference to drinking water. And furthermore, what can be done is, and what the government has been doing is, the government, we can predict that droughts take place in this part of the country. In fact, it is actually 42% of a country that is drought prone, and 60 million of a population, as per an index known as Composite Water Management Index. So 600 million of our population, that is half of our population, is water stressed. It is water stressed. Right. So this is it. Now I'm telling you this, so let me finish this only. So I'm basically, if you look at this, assess India's vulnerability to droughts. So it's basically, you can start your answer by stating about the population that is affected, the geography that is affected, the number of people that are affected by drought. And here you can give upon an aspect that it is the backward areas with limited means. It is the poorer sections, marginalized sections. So in that case, the vulnerability actually increases because the problem is severe, but the ability of the population to sustain that pressure. For example, I may have an AC and still have pipe connection in my house, but there it is not very difficult, right? So they are from the marginalized sections, and therefore the socio-economic impact that it has, it becomes much more severe. So in that way, you can reflect upon the aspect of vulnerability. If water was available to different parts, even if the monsoon is not there, you can still say that, see, we can get over this problem, right? So monsoons also can be mentioned with reference to vulnerability, that we are excessively rain dependent, water dependent, monsoon dependent for our water needs. Rain fed agriculture is there. Okay, so this is there. Then what measures need to be taken? Socio-economic implications, then what measures need to be taken? So there should be fodder depot, there should be fodder bank. Maybe you can also say it should be made part of the national livestock policy. Okay, availability of drinking water, it should be made accessible. Now beyond this, I told you that we can actually state, see, we have it on the map itself, it's government data. So the ones that you see are dark are actually the flood drought prone areas. So we can actually identify these areas. So we can actually make provisions. Fine, the rains do not take place, but some of the time there is water that is coming from some way or the other, basically rains or river flowing. So we can store that water. So we can dig ponds, we can dig the earth and create ponds, right? So that will lead to watershed development. So watershed development must be done. So there is a scheme under the Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana. Krishi Sinchai Yojana was introduced in 2015, and it was a very holistic scheme of all irrigation related aspects were covered into one umbrella. And within this, we have integrated watershed development scheme. So this can be made part of it, and better implementation has to be done. Okay, so that can be there. So when water is required, you have the pond. From there, you can draw water to the fields or for drinking or for whatever purpose that can be utilized. Okay, then irrigation has to be done in more sustainable manner. So more crop per drop, as envisaged by the Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana. So for less amount of water, more crops. Israel is farming. Israel is a desert area, but still it is doing very well. Dubai is doing very well, right? So that aspect you can bring about. Okay, then you can also state the issue of farm insurance. Farm insurance need to be made available because this is a farm failure, and farm failure is leading to poverty. If a person falls ill, there is a health insurance. So it is a great help to us. So likewise, farmers also, we have farm insurance, but the implementation is not very good. And now there are certain flaws with the scheme also. We have Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. So if we are able to cover more and more farmers and they are able to avail insurance in case of a disaster, then it will help mitigate the issue, the socio-economic effects that they face. So that can be solved. Now here I have one more data over here. Availing crop insurance is a difficulty. We also have, this is a separate thing altogether, but basically the funding is not coming. That is the problem. The private sector is not releasing money more. Most of it is getting privatized, and then these are the challenges. Right, so these are the steps that can be undertaken to reform. And one more thing I would say, we can add something. So with reference to water stress, so when this report had come, there was also a talk about reforming the way the water governance in a country takes place. Water governance. Got it? The governance of water. Simple. How is it controlled? How it is regulated? How is it stored? Every single aspect. So for this we have Central Water Commission. So there was the talk about having an integrated approach to of water management. So for this, a committee was formed known as Mihir Shah Committee Report. Mihir Shah Committee Report, and it said that Central Water Commission is actually working on, it's full of engineers and civil engineers, and they're concerned about creating canals, dams, etc. But we need to have an integrated approach. It's not just rivers that are flowing, there are also rivers that are flowing at the subterranean level. We have to look at the groundwater level aspect also. We need to look at, when we look at the water governance, we have to look at it from the ecological perspective, from the perspective of agriculture, etc. So people from different domains should be part of it, right? So you can mention that we need to have an holistic approach of water governance in India, and that needs to be relooked. You can also give a reference of interlinking of river water. That is also one thing that the government has been focusing upon. In fact, there was a PIB that I came across, and the PIB said that India needs to take a balanced approach to water management, where we have droughts as well as floods. And in fact, it happens in the same time of the year. We may have in a place where there is flood and another place there is a drought. Right. Now, this is important for prelims, and this is basically with reference to the Indian Navy, defense, and such things are asked in the prelims paper. So Visakhapatnam, Vizag is Visakhapatnam to come under security blanket for fleet review. So basically there are two things. So one is the presidential fleet review, that is our president will be visiting Visakhapatnam and will see our Navy fleets, Navy equipments, resources, etc. And there is a Milan summit. Milan, not Milan, right? So Milan means meeting. Meeting of whom? Meeting of Indian Ocean littoral countries, right? So countries that are near about the Indian Ocean region. Did you notice this? I went this Africa, right? I hope you start visualizing the map also when you're doing this. So all these countries will be part of this meeting that is taking place in Visakhapatnam. Okay, now I didn't get much actually. So in this particular thing, we have countries outside of the littoral states. We have US also. In fact, all Quad countries will be there, including the United States. So this is the first time. This summit has been taking place since 1995 and is being held every 2 years, right? So this has been taking every 2 years and at Port Blair. Okay, now with reference to Port Blair, prelims is coming. So, you know, where is Port Blair? Andaman Nicobar. Now with reference to Andaman Nicobar, there is Duncan Passage, there is 10-degree channel. Then Nicobar was in news for some reason, I can't recall. But just have a look at this map over here, Atlas, refer to this and refer to the sites, things that I just said. Find them and plot them on the map. Because these things have been asked in the prelims, and there is a kind of a repetitiveness in such type of questions. It basically reflects upon your awareness as to how you are able to spot things. So this you have to inculcate. Okay. Then there is also a reference that in this particular summit, we are going to showcase the Navy, its deep submergence rescue vehicle. Deep surveillance rescue vessel capabilities. So what is this? And if you have seen the submarine types movies that are there, especially that English movies. Yeah, we have this movie, right? Ghazi, they didn't show this thing. A very interesting movie, by the way. Okay, so this submarine is there and this is deep inside the water. Now, what if there is an accident that takes place? Or there is a failure in the submarine that is inside the sea, deep inside the sea. There is a lot of pressure also. So this may cause, I mean, obviously many times we see that a lot of lives have been lost. So we need this is basically a system, deep submergence rescue vessel, where the ships can release these vessels, they can go deep and rescue the people, or whatever rescue related work has to be done, that can be done, right? So this has been created by I think by India only, indigenously developed. So Navy will be showcasing this. So in a way we can also say we are looking at Make in India in the defense sector, Make in India and export. Okay, this is important, and we have two news with reference to the similar topic. So first of all, it is with India's External Affairs Minister, Mr. Jaishankar, who is leaving for Germany, and then from Germany he'll go to France. And before this, there was also a meeting that took place in Australia, Melbourne, and that is known as the Quad Summit, if you remember, Quad. So in Quad, when the US was saying that we are concerned about US and Germany, France are also part of the Minsk, right? Minsk and the Normandy format. So they say that Russia's, that's a fear that these countries have with reference to what Russia is doing. So we feel that it is not justified. They have taken a very neutral stand. They have taken a very mellow stand with reference to Russia, and that is understandable because our relations with Russia are very good and we don't want to spoil it. Plus, but because of this US-Russia axis, and when we say Russia-Ukraine issue is also taking place, and NATO comes into picture. NATO is led by USA. So this complicates a problem over here. We want to take a very we are not taking a very tough stand. Even when we are talking about bringing back our people over there, it is very softly worded. So they want India, EU counterparts, especially Germany and France, when it comes to India, they expect India to take a tougher line. So they want to push India, put pressure on India to take a tougher action on what Moscow has been doing. So this is what they are saying. So he'll be going, first of all, he'll go to Germany, and there he'll be speaking about the Indo-Pacific, this thing at the Munich Security Conference. Then he will go to the Paris, again a summit with reference to Indo-Pacific. Okay. India again backs diplomacy at United Nations Security Council. Now, one thing just before starting this topic, United Nations Security Council, as you know, it's like the executive arm, one of the most important agencies of the UN, right? Maybe after United Nations General Assembly, and it has 15 members. So 10 temporary, 5 permanent, and India is a temporary member right now. Now, just before this February, just before this, India had the presidency of the UNSC. Presidency, that means it was presiding over the meetings of the UNSC, and now it is with Russia. So now Russia had called upon a meeting of the UNSC and to mark the 7th anniversary of the MINSK II ceasefire agreement. Right, so all of this is important for prelims. So Minsk is important, Minsk agreement, Normandy format, and few other things that are listed over here. In fact, Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe also will do. Yeah, so it is with reference to this that they had called upon, and we know that this is taking place at a time when there is a lot of tension. So in this case, what India has said is that, see, we do not want this situation to go bad, situation between Ukraine and Russia, because if there is an invasion, then situation is bad. And even if the situation remains intensified, it may happen that the US may make the sanctions, US may impose economic sanctions on Russia, and likewise with Western countries, also European countries, they may also impose a sanction on Russia. So in that case, there is going to be too much pressure on India when it wants to engage with Russia, especially in terms of defense equipments. Like even now, S-400, getting this missile was a great challenge. So we have imported this from Russia, but USA was objecting to it. Right, so it compromises our ability here. So if diplomatically, if it is solved and resolved as soon as possible, that will help us. In fact, after the the war of Donbass that had taken place, the sanctions by USA on Russia has actually complicated things for us at the moment. So it will further make things more difficult. Okay, now let's come to the Minsk agreement. So this Minsk II agreement, two is important. So Minsk I was done in 2014, but it had failed. There was almost a war that was going to take place in 2015, but eventually Minsk II agreement took place, where some sort of an assurance was given to Russia and nothing happened. So this was signed between Russia, Ukraine, separatist leaders in who were Ukraine, and the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. So this is the organization, and there are 57 countries besides the European countries. So this you have to keep in mind. Non-European countries are also part of this. So North America, Europe, Asia. So even Asia, yes. Tajikistan, Central Asian countries are part of this. Uzbekistan, these are also part of this. Right. Now this had taken place, the negotiations were being done by France and Germany. France and Germany we cannot overlook over here. Right. So this is it. And then furthermore, our Mr. Trimurti in UNSC, so he also expressed support for the Normandy format, and Normandy format is Russia, Ukraine, Germany and France, and the trilateral contact group, which comprises of representation of Russia, Ukraine and the OSCE. Right, now we need to know about the OSCE. So it basically works for stability, peace and democracy for more than 1 billion of people, and basically we are concerned about Europe in this case. Now it is founded in Helsinki in Finland. My pronunciation is bad only. Okay, so it is there, and it is founded here, but its secretariat is in Vienna, that is Austria. These things you have to be very careful. Right? Okay, India UAE to sign trade pact today. So this is not ending. In fact, I had to skip 2 opinions which I wanted to do. So this is with reference to road accidents, and one was with reference to this only. So this I can tell you. I know what is there in the news, but it's just that it would have taken a lot of time to cover. Okay, so I'll tell you actually what would have been there. I think that is good enough. So I think it's being signed at this present moment when I'm recording this, India and UAE. So they are going to have a comprehensive economic partnership agreement. What does this mean? It means a lot of things actually beyond trade. So one thing is that it will allow more better integration of the economy. That will be obviously comprehensive economic partnership agreement. So that will be there. Regulations will ease because of this in Indian context also. More capital. UAE is actually capital. It's not a very small market. It's actually the capital that the UAE people have, Dubai people have. So that capital will flow into our country. More investments will come into our country. See, even if it is not stated, there is a definite emphasis on capital that is coming. So interest in investing in the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. Investment from the UAE has steadily grown and has reached $17 billion. So there is a lot of talk on investments, and investments in what? Infrastructure. And what does this lead to? Capital formation. And what does capital formation lead to? Capital formation leads to better returns. It ultimately leads to increased GDP. The efficiency of the economy increases because of this. And the government has more resources for social welfare or whatever things they have to do. Right? So that is the advantage of this. In fact, many of our highways, there is this national monetization pipeline. What do? So we have this highway, we have this assets of the governments, so where the toll is not there. So completely they will sell the rights, not the highway as such, sell the rights for revenue from that toll. So toll operate transfer. That means that let's say a Dubai based company can buy access to this, and then they can keep collecting toll, and whenever we are traveling, so we'll have to pay the toll tax. Right? So these are things that are happening right now. Okay, so capital is coming, and what more? I said lots more, right? So first of all, our population is also there in in Arabic nations, so in Dubai, and Dubai can act as a gateway to the Middle East region. Here it is specifically with reference to trade, right? People who are into jewelry are very happy because gold will be more easily accessible to us. Many people who go to Dubai, they come and buy gold. Okay, so Dubai, they buy gold over there, right? So this is seen as a gateway to Middle East Asia, and UAE is seen as a, with the Arab countries over here, Saudi Arabia and many other countries. So UAE is seen as a liberal front. So UAE has actually been very proactive in our relations rather than the Saudi Arabia. So it is seen as a liberal front, and ultimately from here we can have a greater engagement with the with the Arab bloc. Right, Arab nations, we can have it, which is actually Saudi led. Saudi is the most important country and a monarchy over there. And yes, of course, oil trade, oil and energy. So that is also there. Finance Minister backs for more support to low and middle income nations. Very quickly, I'm going to do this. And what is more important over here is, where is she saying this? So she's saying at the G20 finance ministers and central bank governors. So this is there, and there is one more G20 meet that takes place, and that is where the head of the states go, like Prime Minister and other people go, right? So one is with PM and other is with the finance ministers and the central bank governors. And it goes without saying that this is basically where we are looking at the financial corporations, right? So financial stability of the world, that is why finance ministers are there. Okay, so we'll come to that, but let's finish what finance minister has said. So she's basically saying that this low middle income countries, and a country like ours, India, and many other developed countries also struggled because of the pandemic. So low and middle income countries, which is also a great vote base of India when it comes to UN, our elections to various things, that is also politics, right? BRICS, WTO, not BRICS, WTO. So they also play a very important role, and these are small countries, but they still have a vote. Okay, so they should be provided technology. They should not be devoid of the global public goods that should be available to everybody, and this includes vaccine, drugs, medicines, PPE kit, etc. So this should be made available. We should have a sympathetic viewpoint. We should look at this issue compassionately and help the low and middle income nations. And she gave a reference to India, where India itself allocated $29 billion for providing health infrastructure and insurance to the poor. And that escapes my mind. I mean, the health allocation has not increased, health budget, but more money has been set aside. So that is a separate thing, but this is a fact that you can keep and write it in your answer writing, right? So when you have to criticize, then you can say that the health policy, in accordance with that, our spending is half of this. It is less than the lower middle income countries also. But other times, what has the government done? Then you can say that, see, $29 billion have been allocated to bolster health infrastructure and provide insurance, right? So this is how we play, and we should learn from the government in that regard. Okay, coming to the G20 over here. So what is this G20? The G20 is an intergovernmental forum. So G20. So basically what happened was, there was G7, G8 actually, Russia, they have bad relations, so Russia out and the sanctions. So G7, so it was felt that, say, G7 is the developed countries, more powerful countries, but there are time to times when there are dangers to the global economy, there are some sort of financial crisis, and all the countries get affected. So they realized that we need to expand. G7 is still there, but we need to have a more inclusive representation where more dominant countries, which are important but not part of G7, should be included. And particular interest was global economy, stability of that, and international financial stability. Beyond this, later with times, it has become the summit to talk on anything actually, including climate change, mitigation, sustainable development, even Ukraine issue, Russia tensions. So that is also discussed. Right, so the chairman is, it has a rotating presidency, right? So I don't think there is a specific secretariat, please check this, but it keeps rotating from one region to another. That is the system of G20. And yes, with reference to membership, you really don't have to memorize. Or what you can do is the odd one out. For example, India, is India part of it? Yes. China part of it? Yes. Pakistan? No. Myanmar? No. Like that, you can apply yourself and memorize. But yes, do visit this also, because it's actually, when the prelims, you are going to do this only. So this you keep in mind.